Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Story Does. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Stephen King's memoir on writing. We're not actually going to be talking about any of the advice that he gives in this book. Instead, what we're going to be talking about is how he got his first book, Carrie, published, and what that did for his life. I had 4 problems with what I'd written. First, and least important, was the fact that the story didn't move me emotionally. Second, and slightly more important, was the fact that I didn't much like the lead character. Carrie White seemed thick and passive, a ready-made victim. The other girls were chucking tampons and sanitary napkins at her, chanting, "Plug it up, plug it up," and I just didn't care. Third, and most important still, was not feeling at home with either the surroundings or my all-girl cast of supporting characters. I had landed on Planet Female, and one sortie into the girls' locker room at Brunswick High School years before wasn't much help in navigating there. For me, writing has always been best when it's intimate, as sexy as skin on skin. With Carrie, I felt as if I were wearing a rubber wetsuit I couldn't pull off. Fourth, and most important of all, was the realization that the story wouldn't pay off unless it was pretty long, probably even longer than Sometimes They Come Back, which had been the absolute outer limit of what the men's magazine market would accept in terms of word count. You had to save plenty of room for those pictures of cheerleaders who had somehow forgotten to put on their underpants. They were what guys really bought magazines for. I couldn't see wasting 2 weeks, maybe even a month, creating a novella I didn't like and wouldn't be able to sell, so I threw it away. The next night when I came home from school, Tabby had the pages. She spied them while emptying my wastebasket, had shaken a cigarette ashes off the crumpled balls of paper, smoothed them out, and sat down to read them. She wanted me to go on with it, she said. She wanted to know the rest of the story. I told her I didn't know jack shit about high school girls. She said she'd help me with that part. She had her chin tilted down and was smiling in that severely cute way of hers. "You've got something here," she said. "I really think you do." I never got to like Carrie White, and I never trusted Sue Snell's motives in sending her boyfriend to the prom with her, but I did have something there, like a whole career. Tabby somehow knew it, and by the time I had piled the 50 spaced pages, I knew it too. For one thing, I didn't think any of the characters who went to Carrie White's prom would ever forget it. Those few who lived through it, that was. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit. That's how he got started. He hated Carrie, and so he threw it away, and his wife, Tabby, picked it up. Her name is Tabitha. He goes on to explain a little bit as to how he got inspired for the character of Carrie, etc., and this is what we get. The manuscript of Carrie went off to Doubleday, where I had made a friend named William Thompson. I pretty much forgot about it and moved on with my life, which at that time consisted of teaching school, raising kids, loving my wife, getting drunk on Friday afternoons, and writing stories. My free period that semester was 5, right after lunch. I usually spent it in the teacher's room, grading papers and wishing I could stretch out on the couch and take a nap. In the early afternoon, I have all the energy of a boa constrictor that's just swallowed a goat. The intercom came on, and Colleen Seitz in the office asked if I was there. I said I was, and she asked me to come to the office. I had a phone call. My wife. The walk from the teacher's room to the lower wing in the main office seemed long, even with the classes in session, and the halls mostly empty. I hurried, not quite running, my heart beating hard. Tabby would have to dress the kids in their boots and jackets to use the neighbor's phone, and I could think of only 2 reasons she might have done so. Either Joe or Naomi had fallen off the stoop and broken a leg, or I had sold Carrie. My wife, sounding out of breath but deliriously happy, read me a telegram. Bill Thompson, who would later go on to discover a Mississippi scribbler named John Grisham. So anyone that knows John Grisham is the author of Rainmaker, had sent, as well as many other things, had sent it after trying to call and discovering that the Kings no longer had a phone. "Congratulations," it read. "Carrie, officially a Doubleday book, is $2,500 advance okay. The future lies ahead. Love, Bill." $2,500 was a very small advance, even for the early 70s, but I didn't know that and had no literary agent to know it for me. Before it occurred to me that I might actually need an agent, I had generated well over $3 million worth of income, a good deal of it for the publisher. The standard Doubleday contract in those days was better than indentured servitude, but not much. And my little high school horror novel marched toward publication with excruciating slowness. Although it was accepted in late March or early April of 1973, publication wasn't slated until the spring of 1974. This wasn't unusual. In those days, Doubleday was an enormous fiction mill churning out mysteries, romances, science fiction yarns, and Double D westerns at a rate of 50 or more a month. All of this in addition to the robust front list including books of heavy hitters like Leon Uris and Alan Dury. I was only one small fish in a very big river. Tabby asked if I could quit teaching. I told her no, not based on a $2,500 advance and only nebulous possibilities beyond that. If I'd been on my own, maybe, hell, probably, but with a wife and 2 kids, not happening. I remember the 2 of us lying in bed that night eating toast and talking until the small hours of the morning. Tabby asked me how much we'd make if Doubleday was able to sell paperback reprints rights to Carrie, and I said I didn't know. I read that Mario Puzo had just scored a huge advance for paperback rights to The Godfather, $400,000 according to the newspaper, but I didn't think Carrie would fetch anything near that, assuming it sold paperback at all. Tabby asked, rather timidly for my normal outspoken wife, if I thought the book would find a paperback publisher. I told her I thought the chances were pretty good, maybe 7 or 8 in 10. She asked how much it might bring. I said my best guess was somewhere between $10,000 and $60,000. $60,000? She sounded almost shocked. Is that much even possible? I said it was. Not likely, perhaps, but possible. I also reminded her that my contract specified a 50-50 paperback split, which meant that if Ballantine or Dell did pay $60,000, we'd only get $30,000. Tabby didn't dignify this with a reply. She didn't have to. $30,000 was what I could expect to make in 4 years of teaching, even with the annual salary increases thrown in. It was a lot of money. Probably just pie in the sky, but it was a night for dreaming. If you want some of the best advice on how to write and you want to understand how a man became a multi-million-dollar author writing horror, as well as using a pen name to write books such as The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption, you need to pick up Stephen King's On Writing. Until next time, this has been Story Dose.